During an intense winter storm in the Midwest, a single woman welcomed a group of frozen military personnel into her establishment and showed them extraordinary compassion. However, the military's response the following day astonished the entire community. Could you sacrifice everything without expecting any reward? The gale screamed like something alive, battering Kingston's windows. Ice crystals flew horizontally through the air, transforming everything beyond into a spinning emptiness of frozen whiteness. The road, previously bustling with steady vehicle sounds and far-off honking, had disappeared beneath layers of frozen precipitation and quietness. Within the restaurant, Linda Kingston worked with resolve, her exhalations appearing as mist in the freezing atmosphere. The ancient heating system wheezed like an expiring creature, scarcely producing any warmth, yet she wouldn't close for business. The restaurant sat dimly illuminated, powered solely by several backup lights running on the worn generator out back. Every flashing bulb created elongated darkness throughout the seating areas where a pair of truck drivers gathered around tepid coffee, hunched over in heavy jackets. Linda topped off their cups with experienced movements, her own hands chapped from the frigid conditions, though her expression remained peaceful and determined. Her father's photograph, enclosed in a frame and decorated with a miniature stars and stripes, was displayed over the service area. Robert Kingston, born 1948, died 2012. Veteran of Vietnam, established the restaurant. An inscription below it stated, "For those continuing to serve, for those continuing to drive, this is your home base." Linda's eyes lingered on it briefly before returning to prepare a container of chili on the gas burner. She kept it to herself, yet she sensed her father's words in her mind. "Leave the lamp burning, child. There's always somebody depending on you out there." Beyond the walls, the tempest intensified. Approximately 7:15 in the evening, while she was serving soup into containers, the entrance burst inward with a surge of freezing air. Linda hurried to close it, then stopped moving. A dozen military personnel stood just past the doorway, their faces crimson and weathered from the bitter cold, frozen precipitation adhering to their gear like ice on evergreen branches. Their commanding officer, approximately late 30s with intense silver-colored eyes and a white streak near his temple, advanced carefully. "Ma'am," he uttered hoarsely. "We belong to the 302nd. Our vehicle group became stranded roughly 5 miles away. All systems failed: motors, communication devices, heating units. We spotted your signage from the highway. Would it be acceptable if..." Linda didn't wait for him to finish. She seized a bundle of towels from behind the service counter and threw them to the closest service member. "Enter now. Remove the damp clothing. Position yourselves near the cooking area. It's more comfortable there." The military personnel paused, taken aback. "I'm not making a request," she continued, approaching them with an authority that permitted no disagreement. "Move forward." She directed them inward, guiding them toward the commercial cooking equipment, currently radiating faintly in the kitchen's edge. Individually, the soldiers settled into various chairs, their hand coverings creating steam as warmth started penetrating the chill in their frames. They attempted to communicate, to present her with currency, to express regret, to clarify. Yet Linda dismissed it. "The meal is heated. Don't inquire, simply consume." She distributed everything remaining in her supplies: chili, cornbread, broth, carved ham from her diminishing frozen inventory. The military personnel consumed it wordlessly, in the manner only individuals near hypothermia could. Only after they'd started warming did one among them, a towering individual with a gentle southern drawl, indicate the partition behind the service area. "Was that your dad?" he inquired. Linda rotated, her expression softening. "Affirmative, Robert Kingston, 1st Battalion, 3rd Marines." The silver-eyed commanding officer rose and approached nearer. His demeanor transformed as he gazed at the mounted insignia positioned next to the photograph. His tone lowered. "He served in Da Nang." Linda confirmed with 2 nods. "Returned home following his initial deployment. Never ceased discussing the comrades he abandoned there." The commanding officer released a gradual exhalation, nearly a sigh. "I'm Jake Morrow. My former commanding officer served alongside 3rd Marines. I matured listening to those identities. He indicated a roster attached beside the photograph. Identities of deceased comrades Linda's father had demanded never be erased from memory. I believe my uncle served with him. An extended silence followed. Jake surveyed the area, his demeanor transforming. Respect, acknowledgement, perhaps something more profound. Linda interrupted the quietness. The generator is failing. We'll maintain sufficient electricity for perhaps several additional hours. Following that, its coverings and shared warmth. Jake acknowledged. We've rested in inferior conditions. By 9 in the evening, the tempest had isolated the community. Frozen accumulations reached 6 feet against the restaurant's exterior. The electrical network wavered and ultimately ceased. Linda ignited kerosene lighting devices, positioning them throughout each section of the storage facility behind the restaurant, her crisis inventory and provision area. She opened the rolling entrance and motioned for the military personnel and remaining truck drivers to proceed. We'll manage. We consistently do. Within, she arranged timber platforms, covered them with cardboard and coverings. Multiple individuals gathered together, the chill penetrating through the cement flooring. Linda operated like medical personnel, distributing broth in plastic containers, replenishing a damaged coffee container with valuable heated water. Jake assumed the responsibility of coordination. He paired individuals, examined for frostbite, bandaged hands with fabric. When a youthful enlisted soldier started trembling uncontrollably, he murmured narratives into his hearing. Narratives about endurance, about individuals surviving worse circumstances, about sweltering summers in tropical regions and the comfort of precipitation. Linda observed him from the area's perimeter, her spine against a metallic rack of preserved peaches and outdated soup. She was drained. Her vision stung from vapor. Her limbs ached. Her feet pulsated, yet she persisted. One military member attempted to present her with a collection of moist currency. Negative, she stated, kindly returning it. At minimum for the nourishment. Negative. Her inflection was soft yet unwavering. You served your country. This is my obligation. Jake registered it. He acknowledged slightly, expressing nothing verbally, though his gaze conveyed everything. The tempest continued violently throughout the darkness. Yet within Kingston Stop there existed warmth. Silence existed, certainly, though not the empty variety. It represented the silence of endurance, of appreciation too profound for verbal expression. And immediately beyond, beneath a mountain of frozen precipitation, a damaged highway marker flickered beneath a frozen illumination fixture. Kingston Stop heated meals, operating late. It remained scarcely visible currently, yet for the individuals within, it had completed its purpose. It had guided them home. The winter storm showed no mercy. Actually, it intensified the variety of frigid conditions that penetrated framework and recollection. By 12 midnight, Linda Kingston had ceased tallying the quantity of vehicle lights that blinked dimly through the frozen precipitation before disappearing behind the restaurant. Information had circulated, potentially through truck driver communication devices, potentially through Fortune, that Kingston Stop remained operational, remained comfortable. By 1 in the morning, over 30 individuals occupied the interior. The storage facility, previously a peaceful location for extra containers and aged furniture, had transformed into an improvised refuge. Linda had distributed every timber platform she could locate, every segment of cardboard, every worn blanket that had previously lined seating areas in the aged restaurant. Improvised sleeping areas existed in sections, military personnel positioned adjacent to truck drivers. A Labrador retriever someone had collected at a highway rest area was positioned beneath a collection of jackets, tail moving feebly. Linda functioned like machinery, replenishing containers with broth, distributing water, monitoring anyone appearing excessively pallid or excessively quiet. Her footwear created paths of moisture across the flooring. Her digit extremities were chapped from the frigid conditions. Jake Morrow had transformed into her companion. He didn't issue commands like military personnel. He operated quietly, monitoring vital signs, securing a covering over the rear loading area to obstruct the gale, demonstrating to a youthful truck driver methods to warm his hands without endangering himself to frostbite. Linda discovered him positioned beside a military veteran in wheeled mobility equipment, modifying the individual's neck covering as though it represented the most ordinary action imaginable. During the limited peaceful intervals between responsibilities, they conversed. Minimally initially, minor subjects, atmospheric conditions, motor malfunctions. Yet approximately 3:30 in the morning, as the tempest shrieked immediately beyond the metal barriers, they positioned themselves on inverted containers near the cooking equipment, surrounded by quietness. Jake communicated initially. I served in Fallujah. Initial occasion we experienced severe attack. My closest companion was 5 feet distant. Subsequently, he wasn't present. Linda didn't reply immediately. The sound of the ignition light occupied the area between them. My father shared a narrative like that. He served in Da Nang. Claimed he ceased registering weapons fire one day because the screaming was more intense. Jake raised his gaze. What characterized him? She expressed amusement, though it represented a weary expression. He existed as a phantom extensively before his passing. Never genuinely departed Vietnam. He established this location to achieve peace with it. I believe he expressed wanting to construct something nobody could demolish. A protected location for truck drivers, for military veterans, for anyone in the frigid conditions. Jake surveyed the lines of unknown individuals currently sleeping or resting on improvised sleeping surfaces. I conclude he accomplished his goal. Linda's vision moistened. She blinked rapidly. Occasionally, I question it. He inclined forward. You maintained this operational knowing the approaching situation. That's beyond merely obligation. That's inheritance. They remained positioned for additional time in quietness, each permitting the comfort of the instance to cushion the severity beyond. Yet even comfort possesses its boundaries. Immediately before sunrise, a ruptured conduit over the restroom detonated like weapon discharge. Liquid gushed throughout the cement, freezing nearly immediately along the distant barrier. Linda cursed quietly and hurried to deactivate the control mechanism. Jake seized towels and commenced absorbing what he could. Anxiety spread through the refuge like a gentle wind. A truck driver murmured that his communication device had indicated the area's electrical network might be deactivating. A female in a reflective garment whispered that fuel conduits were freezing throughout the region. Another individual reported observing emergency vehicles trapped in frozen accumulations back in Des Moines. It represented excessive amounts for some. An adolescent driver positioned himself into a section, trembling despite dual layers of jackets. One among the military personnel commenced moving about, muttering they should have remained with the vehicle group. Pressure intensified. Linda positioned herself upward on a dairy container, her tone powerful yet peaceful. Pay attention. We possess heating. We possess protection. We possess one another. If you're present, you're not isolated. We're going to endure this. Jake supported her, circulating among the gathering with comforting acknowledgments and quiet statements. The anxiety didn't disappear, yet it ceased expanding. Subsequently, Linda returned to the cooking area and discovered a message inscribed on a paper menu's reverse. Appreciation for maintaining the flame illuminated. BK. She examined the characters extensively, her father's designation abbreviations. She folded it meticulously and inserted it into her garment compartment that as dawn neared, her capacity started diminishing. She reclined against the preparation surface, vision partially shut. Her limbs shook, not from frigid conditions, but depletion. Jake registered it. You require rest. I'm unable. Affirmative, you're capable. 10 intervals. I'll maintain operations functioning. She initiated objection yet observed the authenticity in his countenance, the reliability in his vision. 10 intervals, she stated. Not additional. He assisted her onto a portable bed in the administrative room behind the restaurant. She reclined completely clothed, footwear still worn, and shut her vision. Jake positioned himself in the entrance, limbs crossed, observing the frozen precipitation descend through the damaged window. Somewhere beyond in the tempest, assistance might be approaching or might not. Yet within Kingston Stop, currently there existed warmth. There existed narratives. And within the narratives there existed existence. The initial sound that interrupted the dawn's stillness wasn't the gale. It represented motors, subdued, profound and systematic. Linda Kingston emerged from a short, troubled rest in the administrative area, her vision opening rapidly as the storage facility barriers vibrated slightly. Not from the tempest, but from activity beyond. She moved rapidly upward, footwear already worn, jacket partially secured. As she advanced into the passage, Jake encountered her midway. "They've arrived," he stated simply. She proceeded with him through the restaurant to the front entrance. Beyond, the winter storm had decelerated, yet the frozen precipitation was accumulated substantially, waist level in locations. Through the iced windows she observed them. For camouflaged military vehicles advancing, substantial wheels crushing against partially melted ice and frozen precipitation. Behind them arrived two more substantial vehicles. Green, protected, deliberate. A military member descended and signaled for area. Another deployed a mobile generator. And subsequently arrived the individual himself. Colonel Nathaniel Wolfe emerged from the primary military vehicle like an individual arriving in enemy region. Wide frame, trimmed silver hair, bearing that demanded immediate recognition. His countenance was aged and resolute, his demeanor indecipherable beneath reflective eyewear that he didn't request authorization. He advanced into the restaurant as though it represented a combat zone inspection point. "Who's responsible here?" he demanded. Linda advanced forward without hesitating. "That represents me." He examined her thoroughly, registering her disorganized braid, marked jacket, and crimson-edged vision. She encountered his stare directly. "What represents this?" he inquired, indicating the storage facility beyond. "Some variety of civilian assistance refuge." "Negative," she responded, peaceful yet deliberate. "It's a highway stop. My father constructed it. When the tempest arrived, we didn't cease operations." Jake materialized behind her. The colonel's vision constricted. "Morrow, I should have anticipated." "Commander," Jake stated with a respectful acknowledgement. Wolfe rotated back to Linda, demeanor doubtful. "You're indicating 30-plus civilians, a dozen of my military personnel, and an unaccompanied canine are resting on platforms in an inventory area, and nothing's proceeded incorrectly. We've experienced frozen conduits, dual anxiety episodes, and one truck driver nearly collapsed from fluid deficiency," she stated, her inflection reliable. "Yet beyond that, it's been tranquil." Wolfe elevated an eyebrow. He advanced past her and into the storage facility, his footwear striking substantially on the cement. Linda proceeded, cardiac organ accelerating. He circulated like an examiner, observing coverings, registering how sustenance had been arranged, communicating quietly with a military member who expressed amusement and acknowledged in her orientation. When he halted before the barrier where her father's photograph displayed, dignified in his ceremonial attire beneath a diminished stars and stripes, his bearing transformed slightly. "What military division?" he inquired. "Point 101 ST, Firebase Ripcord." Wolfe acknowledged nearly imperceptibly. He served there, sacrificed 2 digits and majority of his auditory capacity, continued to return home and constructed this location. The colonel rotated back to her. "Your father's designation?" "Jack Kingston." A pause. "I recall that designation." They positioned themselves in quietness, the distant vibration of generators currently reverberating off the barriers. Subsequently, he accessed his jacket and extracted a government-provided container packed with pristine currency. "For provisions delivered," he stated, extending it forward. Linda didn't shift. "I'm not accepting your currency. It's not charitable assistance." "Negative," she stated resolutely. Its obligation precisely as it represented his. Wolfe paused, subsequently retracted the container. "Acceptable," he stated gradually. "What if we establish an arrangement?" She inclined her cranium, exhausted. "Permit the military to utilize this storage facility as a provisional supply station. We'll transport in actual sleeping surfaces, medical personnel, sustenance, combustible material. In exchange, we repair the covering, strengthen the thermal protection, and guarantee nobody present freezes before the tempest subsides." Linda examined him briefly, evaluating it. Subsequently, she extended her hand. "Arrangement." And with that physical greeting, everything transformed. The modification occurred rapidly. Military construction personnel arrived with implements and materials. The damaged covering section over the storage facility was substituted within several hours. Combustible material containers were transported in by military personnel with truck drivers assisting to discharge them. Military veterans from the community, registering what Linda had accomplished, materialized with flannel garments, coffee, and a quiet preparedness to assist. One aged Marine even transported his descendants to remove frozen precipitation from the pathways. Jake coordinated vehicle shipments like a combat zone provision sequence. Linda operated the cooking area like a commanding officer. Military personnel and civilians similarly commenced addressing her as ma'am with a combination of regard and fondness. By evening, the storage facility radiated with thermal lighting devices and fellowship. An extended surface was established where military personnel participated in card games beside truck drivers, and juveniles distributed food items enclosed in wax material. Linda positioned herself in the restaurant's entrance, hands on her waist, observing the procedure function without her requiring to contribute effort. Jake advanced beside her. "You accomplished this," she negated with her cranium. "He accomplished this," she stated quietly, observing the representation of her father within. Jake expressed amusement. "Perhaps, yet you restored it to existence." And during that instance, with the tempest continuing to scream beyond the barriers, Kingston Stop represented no longer merely a restaurant. It represented a coordination facility, a refuge, and an inheritance. The tempest had ultimately capitulated. What previously represented a blinding barrier of frozen precipitation and gale currently extended into an accessible atmosphere, pale azure and limitless. Frozen precipitation continued covering the surface in substantial accumulations. Yet for the initial occasion in multiple days, solar illumination penetrated through the atmospheric formations, decorating the ice-covered environment in golden hues. Within Kingston Stop, the concluding morning sensed like the termination of an unusual vision. The improvised refuge vibrated with quiet activity. Military personnel secured their equipment. Truck drivers examined wheels, replenished containers, and established plans to commence traveling. Several volunteers reorganized coverings, cleaned serving items, or distributed insulated containers of powerful, heated coffee. Linda positioned herself behind the service area, back where everything initiated. Her garment was marked with lubricant and broth, her hands damaged from the frigid conditions and continuous cleaning. Yet her vision was gentle, her activities peaceful. There existed a tranquility in her currently, the variety that solely materializes after accomplishing something significant. Jake Morrow was previously functioning, assisting an aged military veteran secure his vehicle's frozen covering. He'd expended majority of the darkness loading containers and arranging departures, yet continued discovering opportunity to quietly remove frozen precipitation from the rear entrance without being requested. He scarcely communicated. Yet his existence had transformed into a constant, like the vibration of the refrigeration unit or the comfortable sound of the coffee equipment. At 8 o'clock in the morning precisely, the dining area became quiet. Colonel Wolfe advanced into the area's center, accompanied by 2 military personnel. For once, his tone wasn't commanding. It represented respectful, even affectionate. "I comprehend numerous of you are prepared to advance forward," he initiated, extracting his hand coverings and positioning them beneath his limb, "and I won't detain you extensively. Yet before we depart, there exists something requiring accomplishment." He rotated toward Linda. "You could have secured your entrances. You could have indicated to my personnel to advance elsewhere. Yet instead, you transformed this location into a signal for military personnel, for truck drivers, for everyone captured in the tempest." He acknowledged toward one of his assistants, who advanced forward, grasping a miniature timber container. "Multiple years previously, your father was suggested for a recognition he never obtained. It was misplaced in documentation, concealed in administrative procedures. Yet I served alongside the individuals who combated beside him. I comprehend what he accomplished. And following what you've accomplished present, it appears solely appropriate that the recognition discovers its residence." He accessed the container. Within existed a bronze decoration gleaming in the dawn illumination. Surprised exhalations spread through the gathering. Linda's vision moistened instantly. Her hands shook slightly as she accepted the container, her digit brushing the engraving. She couldn't communicate. She didn't require to. Jake advanced forward and presented a military salute to her. Others proceeded similarly. Individually, the military personnel, truck drivers, and military veterans positioned themselves and saluted. Some rigid and appropriate, others more informal, yet each occupied with quiet reverence. Even the youngest volunteer, an adolescent female who distributed peanut spread food items the previous day, positioned herself with her hand over her cardiac organ. Linda didn't weep, not precisely, yet her facial structure quivered, and when she ultimately managed to communicate, her tone was unrefined with appreciation. He consistently stated the military conflict didn't characterize him. Yet assisting individuals, that's what rendered him complete again. Appreciation for permitting me to accomplish similarly. Several hours subsequently, the vehicle groups initiated departing. Wheels crushed over compressed frozen precipitation. Motors vibrated. Pneumatic stopping mechanisms released like exhaling creatures. The military vehicles departed in individual sequence, preceded by the vehicles, each producing a gentle horn sound as they advanced past the restaurant's front window. One concluding salute. Linda positioned herself beyond in her substantial jacket, her footwear concealed in the frozen accumulation, hand elevated in departure. Solely one vehicle remained behind, a platform vehicle with a metallic personnel from the military's construction division.